After my brutal death, I woke up by possessing the body of my own daughter, Mimi Vance. I stood before the full-length mirror, inhabiting my daughter's 13-year-old form. My fingers traced the smooth, pale skin of her face, and I laughed so hard my shoulders shook. This young body still had the sweet, milky scent of a girl, 100 times better than the husk that had been hollowed out by hex worms. I was admiring my new body when the lock on the door suddenly clicked. I immediately collapsed onto the bed, feigning the terror of a startled bird and schooling my expression. A handsome, middle-aged man walked in. It was Ethan Vance, the famous director of hit TV dramas, my husband of many years, and the mastermind behind my murder. When Ethan entered wearing his robe, his collar was still smudged with rose-colored lipstick, obviously from his little fling Lily. He frowned and said, "Mimi, you're not asleep yet? The reporters will be here tomorrow to film you crying at the funeral. Get to bed, rest up, and don't you dare embarrass me." Tomorrow was my funeral. After my accidental death, Ethan had my body cremated immediately, factoring in the time needed for the possession ritual. The funeral was indeed tomorrow. I clutched the corner of the blanket, trembling. "Daddy, I had a nightmare about Mom. She was covered in blood, and said she would come back for revenge. A person burned to ashes is going to rise from the dead?" He scoffed, turning off the light, his eyes filled with disdain. "Your mother once said it herself, the hex worms are afraid of fire. That's why I had her cremated right away, burned everything, and even had the urn sealed shut with blessed nails. Nothing can go wrong." "Okay, Daddy. That's a relief," I answered timidly. Ethan yawned. "Good. Daddy's going to go keep Aunt Lily company. You get some rest." With that, he turned and left. I sat obediently on the bed, watching him walk toward the master bedroom. A small red rash had appeared on the back of his neck, the first sign of the soul-eating hex taking effect. Once the footsteps in the hallway faded, I bit my fingertip and drew a blood sigil on the floor. Instantly, a cockroach crawled out from under the bed. Its two antennae drank the blood from the floor, and it became my eyes, sharing its vision with me. The cockroach scurried into Ethan's room, my former bedroom. Through the insect's eyes, I saw the two illicit lovebirds tumbling in the master bed. Everything in the room was new. He was probably afraid I'd left behind some hexed object. On the large bed, Lily was nestled in Ethan's arms like she didn't have a bone in her body. Around her neck was the jade necklace I had won at auction for $20 million. "Honey, why aren't you paying attention? You're not still thinking about your dead ex-wife, are you?" Lily pouted, her voice dripping with saccharine jealousy. Ethan's face darkened, a flash of viciousness in his eyes. "That woman got off too easy." Lily kissed the corner of his mouth and sneered. "What are you worried about? She's dead. How powerful can she be now? You don't understand. You never saw her control a swarm of snakes. She was like a demon. The thought of it still gives me chills." Lily poked his chest with her finger. "Then why did you fall in love with her and marry her back then?" "I only chased her to get out of the bayou," Ethan said, panting as he squeezed her slender waist. "That woman was terrifying, like a ghost. I never even dared to hold her when we slept." Lily giggled and snuggled deeper into his arms. "Well, from now on, you can hold me every night. And if you're still worried, I'll have someone find a medium to perform an exorcism tomorrow." The pair started going at it again. Bored, I leaned on my daughter's desk and started flipping through her diary. The latest entry was written in highlighter. "Aunt Lily is moving in next week. I can finally have a normal mom." I traced the words on the page, and a memory of her surfaced. In kindergarten, she was always stuck to my side, mommy being her favorite word. She would hug me, begging me to tell her fairy tales. But ever since Lily showed up, everything had changed. 14 years ago, I was living deep in the Louisiana bayou, my only companions the snakes and insects. Ethan was just an unknown with no credentials, filming a documentary in the bayou with a camera on his shoulder. He didn't understand how dangerous the place was. My pet green viper wrapped itself around his leg, and he was so scared he wet his pants. Just as he was about to become a meal for the snake pit, I appeared. I thought he was handsome, so I blew my bamboo whistle to scatter the snakes and told him to get off the mountain. But the man just pointed his camera at me and started filming, saying my beauty was stunning. When he heard I was the hex queen of the bayou, the smile on his face deepened, and he became even more enthusiastic. After that, he'd hike up the mountain every day with snacks and sweets. Sometimes he'd bring little bottles and jars of makeup, saying all the city girls used them. One day, during a torrential downpour, he confessed his feelings, drenched to the bone. "Jade, come with me. I'll be good to you for the rest of my life." I laughed, thinking this fool was afraid of snakes and bugs, yet he dared to say he'd take care of me. Only after I left the bayou did I realize he was flat broke, even his camera was rented. I saw him on set getting chewed out by an investor, and my heart softened. I summoned a troop of wild monkeys to cooperate with his documentary, and it became a massive hit. He held his award and kissed my forehead. "Jade, I'll love you forever." After our daughter was born, he switched to directing TV dramas, saying they paid more and he didn't want our child to struggle like we had. Later, while I was in the hospital after giving birth, holding a wrinkly little Mimi and scrolling through social media, the top trending topic was Director Vance's late-night rendezvous with rising starlet Lily. The photo showed Lily leaning into his arms, the slit of her skirt nearly reaching her hip. "It's all for work," he explained with a dismissive shake of his head. "Dramas need hype, they need buzz. This girl's taking a hit to her reputation by being linked to a married man with a kid. She's the one who's getting the short end of the stick." I said nothing. It was the first time he'd been in a scandal with another woman, and the first time I'd seen Lily, a fresh-faced ingenue. Ethan said she was pure, his artistic muse. I never imagined they would become regulars on the trending page. The show was a huge success, making them the hottest director and TV drama starlet of the moment. My daughter, Mimi, often visited the set to watch her dad direct. Over time, she and Lily became close. For her 10th birthday, she took off the formal dress I'd picked for her in the dressing room and put on a princess gown Lily had given her. The little girl stood with her hands on her hips and yelled at me, "I'll wear what I want to wear." As I closed the door, I heard her angry shout, "Why did Daddy have to marry such an annoying woman?" She even declared to the media, "I wish Aunt Lily was my mom." Ethan explained, "It's all for buzz. It's all fake." I just smiled, not surprised at all. I was strict with Mimi, forcing her to exercise and not allowing her to eat junk food. Lily spoiled and indulged her. Was it any wonder she preferred Lily? Ever since the rumors about Ethan and Lily started flying, I stopped helping him with his productions. Without my obedient animals, his shows were no longer special. His cookie-cutter period pieces bombed one after another, and netizens started wondering if they were both washed up. He came to me begging, admitting he was wrong. I just shook my head and refused. I knew he hated my guts. Finally, he made his move. He drugged me, faked my death to look like a relapse of a chronic illness, and had me cremated immediately. With his own daughter's testimony, no one would ever suspect murder. After all, what kind of daughter helps her father and his mistress kill her own mother? But what they didn't know was that when Mimi handed me that bowl of drugged soup, her entire body was trembling with guilt. She was so consumed by fear that she didn't see the hexworm crawl from my wrist into her body as she passed me the bowl. On the day of my funeral, Lily smiled as she adjusted Ethan's black tie. "With all this buzz today, our new show is definitely going to be a hit." It was certainly a lively event. The place was packed with celebrities, and Ethan had specifically invited multiple news outlets to make a splash, far more lavish than our wedding ever was. At the entrance to the memorial hall, there was even a promotional poster for his new drama, Goddess of the Mystic Mountain. As the leading lady, Lily was exquisitely made up. Her eyelashes were curled so high they could probably kill a fly. When the media arrived, the two of them pretended not to know each other. Reporters swarmed them with cameras and microphones, and Ethan instantly switched into the role of the deeply grieving widower. He wiped away a non-existent tear. Jade's final wish was for this show to succeed. "I hope the public will give it a chance, so my wife's spirit can find peace." He then broke down, sobbing with a flood of emotion and tears. It was a complete reversal from a year ago, when he was kneeling by my bed during the filming of Goddess of the Mystic Mountain, begging for my help. I refused, and as he stormed out, he cursed me, saying I deserved to be abandoned by everyone. "Don't worry, Director Vance, we'll definitely help promote it." Our condolences, Director Vance. "Yes, take care of yourself, Director. Your fans are looking forward to it." The reporters started comforting him. I stood to the side, sneering internally. No wonder he wasn't a bit guilty about murdering me. He'd staged this whole spectacle, inviting half of Hollywood, all to suck the last drop of blood from my name and promote his and Lily's new show. The reporters also surrounded Lily, the leading lady, vying for an interview. She elegantly tossed her hair and spoke at length about how hard she'd worked on the show, how dedicated she was. Her eyes shone with confidence, as if she was certain this drama would launch her into a new level of stardom. My dear friend Jade begged me for a whole month to take this role. I absolutely cannot betray her trust. It was so fake, so over the top, I couldn't stand it anymore. Daddy. I tugged on Ethan's sleeve and said in a clear, high voice, I think Mommy's picture is crying. Every camera in the room whipped toward the funeral portrait. The color drained from Ethan's face. He was speechless. Lily covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Beads of blood were seeping from the pristine black and white photograph. Drop by drop, the blood slowly formed 4 shocking words. Ungrateful, backstabbing traitor. The funeral home instantly erupted in chaos, a cacophony of noise. I quickly slipped out of the crowd to watch the drama unfold from a distance. Ethan was so swarmed by reporters that his suit was torn. Lily, the so-called master of composure, had a twisted expression, her elegant, innocent image completely shattered. I was cackling with delight. This bizarre funeral spectacle was exactly the kind of thing conspiracy theorists online would feast on. I even had the trending topic ready. Hashtag Mystic Mountain Goddess Haunts Funeral. Hashtag Ethan Vance Ungrateful. A little fire emoji at the end would be perfect. That night, the topic exploded online as I predicted. Hashtag Ethan Vance promotes new show at wife's funeral. Hashtag Goddess Lily. Hashtag calls mistress Mommy Lily. Hashtag Ethan Vance. Ethan Vance is such a hypocrite, promoting his new show at his wife's funeral. Exactly. And his daughter used to call Lily Mommy Lily. Something was definitely going on between them. His poor wife. Her husband and daughter didn't give a damn about her. I don't get why everyone feels sorry for the wife. If nobody loved her, isn't that her own fault? What does this have to do with Lily? The Lily fan above me is hilarious. The woman is dead, and you still won't leave her alone? Karma's coming for you. I lay in bed, my fingers swiping gently across my phone screen. The top 10 trending topics were all about Ethan and Lily's dirty laundry. Lily's fans tried to control the narrative, but they were completely overwhelmed by the wave of online gossipers. One particularly fired-up user even photoshopped her face onto a funeral portrait with the caption, "Time for the mistress to meet her maker." A cold smile touched my lips. I decided to add more fuel to the fire. I anonymously leaked a tip. Lily was pregnant with Ethan's child, and it was twins. The internet instantly blew up. Commenters flooded in. How do you know? I replied nonchalantly. You'll see for yourselves at the new show's press conference in 2 weeks. Then I quickly went offline, deleting all traces of my activity. At 3 in the morning, the sound of things smashing echoed through the villa. I leaned over the second floor railing and looked down. Lily was hurling an expensive tea set and vases onto the floor. Which one of you bitches leaked that I'm pregnant? She shrieked, her voice a mix of fury and hysteria. If the whole world finds out I'm an unmarried homewrecker, what am I going to do? Ethan stood to the side, silent, just smoking his cigarette with a dark expression. All he cared about was his show, his own interests. As long as Lily could promote the new drama during her pregnancy, that was all that mattered. Her being exposed as an unmarried mother-to-be, her future career, he couldn't care less. But with me around, his little scheme was doomed to fail. 2 weeks later, the Goddess of the Mystic Mountain press conference went on as scheduled, swarmed by every gossip rag in town. The reporters were rubbing their hands together, eager to pounce. Miss Lily, are you really pregnant? Miss Lily, are the rumors online true? To hide her baby bump, Lily had pulled out all the stops. She wore a tight corset that cinched her waist, forcibly creating a slender silhouette. Over it, she wore a tight-fitting slip dress that perfectly outlined her curves, completely concealing her 3-month pregnancy. The moment she stepped on stage, the hashtag Lily pregnancy rumors debunked shot to the top of the trending list. I clicked my tongue. Ethan was really willing to risk it all. Wasn't he afraid of hurting the precious son he'd been dreaming of? Miss Lily looks so amazing, the rumors must be fake. Yeah, You really can't trust what you read online. Lily smiled faintly and did an elegant twirl, showing off her perfect figure. Just as she was about to speak, a scream erupted from the audience. Look, her stomach is moving. Camera flashes exploded like firecrackers. Lily's abdomen looked like it had a live rabbit trapped inside, punching and kicking from left to right, as if it were kickboxing in her womb. Is there a baby kicking in there? Yes, yes. I think she's really pregnant. It looks like it's kicking. The crowd descended into chaos. People were snapping photos, taking videos, and some even started live streaming on the spot. Terrified, Lily collapsed to the floor, her face pale. Dad, what are you just standing there for? I shoved Ethan toward the stage. Get Aunt Lily to the hospital. No, the reporters are all outside. I can't let them know about me and Lily. Ethan's eyes darted around. He was a coward as always. My stomach, it hurts so much, Lily suddenly cried out. I shouted anxiously. Dad, hurry up and take her to the hospital. Something's wrong with Aunt Lily. Ethan's face turned ashen. No, the reporters are outside. Dad, are you just going to let Aunt Lily die in pain? Ethan, it hurts so much. My stomach. Lily begged in agony. Ethan, our baby, save our baby. Her words were picked up by the reporters in the audience, who instantly became as excited as sharks smelling blood in the water. Miss Lily, whose baby did you say it was? Is the baby Director Vance's? The crew members around them all turned to look at Ethan, their expressions complicated. Ethan's face went completely white. He gritted his teeth and finally made a decision. He couldn't let Lily continue to make a fool of herself on stage, especially not with the son he'd been waiting over a decade for in her belly. He rushed onto the stage, swept Lily into his arms, and made a beeline for the hospital. Doctor, what on earth is going on? In the examination room, Ethan tugged at his tie, his head dripping with sweat. The doctor stared at the ultrasound, scratching his head with a deep frown. This is very strange. Everything looks normal, and the fetus is perfectly fine. Why would she be in such excruciating pain? And the fetus is only 3 months along. How could it be moving so violently? The doctor studied it for a long time but couldn't find anything wrong. I quietly raised my hand and touched the slight bulge on my wrist where my heart hex resided. With a gentle press of my finger, the worm inside instantly settled down, and Lily's screams caught in her throat. She was finally able to speak clearly. Ethan, the pain is gone. Ethan let out a long sigh of relief. The reporters outside were getting restless. They had to leave quickly. And so, our group made a clumsy escape back to the villa. Or rather, they made a clumsy escape back to the villa. Now there was no way to contain the online firestorm. So Lily really is pregnant. To the person above, not only is she pregnant, she's pregnant with Director Vance's child. My friend was a backstage crew member. He said Lily was yelling, Ethan, our baby. Oh my God, so Lily and the director were hooking up while his wife was still alive. She's a homewrecker. His poor ex-wife. She was constantly attacked by Lily's fans. Do you think the ex-wife's death has something to do with this pair? To the person above, it's possible. Seeing the direction of public opinion, I was very pleased. Typical negative buzz would have just made Ethan and Lily infamous, driving more traffic and creating a loyal, defensive fanbase. But when that negativity is tied to infidelity and murder, it turns into repulsive dirt that sparks public boycotts and gains momentum. If he tried to ride this out, hoping to profit from the dark publicity, it would inevitably backfire. So he would definitely come out and try to deny it. But once a person starts making excuses, and those excuses are exposed as lies, they lose all credibility and hit rock bottom. Back at the villa, Ethan's hand trembled as he scrolled through his phone. The flood of messages sent him into a rage, and he smashed the ashtray on the table. Lily was sobbing uncontrollably, her tears a never-ending stream. For a rising starlet to be hit with such a scandal, her career was utterly destroyed. I laughed to myself. One of them had been waiting over a decade for a son. The other hoped to use the baby in her belly to secure her position for good. Instead, this unexpected child had dealt them both a devastating blow. Ethan slipped out onto the balcony to make a call, apparently discussing something with someone. Half an hour later, the tide of public opinion online began to turn. A swarm of burner accounts suddenly appeared, defending Ethan and Lily and viciously attacking my former self, calling me a wicked woman who used Ethan's money to keep a boy toy and acted like a tyrant. The post was accompanied by a picture of a scrawny man, photoshopped beyond recognition. A few blurry cheating videos and some doctored text message screenshots also started circulating online. The public, predictably, fell for it. A group of male netizens began to champion Ethan's cause. His ex-wife cheated first. What's wrong with the director finding another woman? He gave her a lavish funeral. He did more than enough. As long as a man can make money, that's all that matters. Being willing to support a shrew of a wife is good enough. People online need to mind their own business. Women are so much trouble. She deserved to be unloved. I silently scrolled through the disgusting comments, finding it all laughable. Ethan must have spent a fortune hiring multiple PR firms to flood the internet with an endless stream of accounts and influencers speaking up for him. The comment sections were a full-blown assault on my former self. I didn't strike back immediately. Instead, I waited, enjoying a life of luxury in Mimi's body, letting the internet rage until the day Goddess of the Mystic Mountain was set to premiere. Ethan and Lily, buoyed by the support of their online defenders, triumphantly posted on social media to promote the show. At the perfect moment, I used a burner account to release the surveillance videos and call recordings. The footage of him and Lily getting cozy in the living room, the audio of them plotting to leave me with nothing in a divorce, and the recording of his call from the balcony a few days ago hiring the online trolls. I released it all. Within 3 minutes of posting, the retweets were in the tens of thousands. Ethan's team scrambled to delete the posts, but the video had already been downloaded millions of times. The duped public unleashed their fury on the pair, even digging up Ethan's old drunk driving record overnight. Photos of Lily before her plastic surgery were turned into memes and plastered everywhere. Ethan's team ultimately chose to suppress the scandal to save the new show. But the more they tried to censor it, the more defiant the public became, and more people joined the crusade against them. The new show's official social media page was flooded with comments like, "Cheating scum and his whore ruined the show," and the hype was completely buried by the scandal. Investors pulled their promotional funding overnight. The two were forced to filter the comments on their social media accounts. Lily got the worst of it, becoming a pariah in the eyes of the public. Her fans abandoned her in droves. Ethan paced around the house, on the verge of a breakdown. "Hey, Mr. Lee, don't worry. Our show is definitely going to be a hit. You have to trust me. Mr. Harris, I promise this show will make its money back. The online gossip won't affect the big picture. Mr. Zhao, please don't pull your funding. The show will be a hit, I swear." His groveling was useless. Investors started showing up at his door, demanding their money back. The public outcry grew louder and louder. Ethan began a frantic circuit of parties and meetings, running himself ragged, begging industry bigwigs to invest in promoting the new show. But Hollywood is the most opportunistic of circles. Seeing his star had fallen, everyone distanced themselves from him, afraid of catching his bad luck. Lily's situation was even worse. She was completely abandoned by everyone. An actress who had previously been all over her, professing their sisterly bond, now told cameras she barely knew her, sending Lily into a rage at home. "That ungrateful snake. She used to call me sis. And now she's kicking me while I'm down." I quickly poured her a glass of water to calm her down. Of course, I secretly added a few special ingredients. "Don't be angry," I said quickly. "The baby is the most important thing right now." Under my meticulous care, Lily's belly grew rapidly. In the end, their highly anticipated new show, Goddess of the Mystic Mountain, was a glorious, bloody flop. Netizens commented, "Serves them right. This is what you get for feasting on the blood of your ex-wife. No decent person would watch a show made by a cheater and a homewrecker." Same, I didn't watch it, but I did snag the cash giveaway the lead actor posted, haha. Hit by multiple blows and burdened by her pregnancy, Lily became a haggard wreck. Her body grew more and more bloated, and she spent her days languishing in the villa. Ethan, on the other hand, used seeking investors and starting a new show as an excuse to attend parties, staying out longer and longer. On the rare occasions he came home, there would be lipstick on his collar. The rift between them deepened, leading to endless arguments. "Ethan, do you think this house is a hotel? You're never home. Lily, look at yourself. Do you look like a star anymore? You look like a hideous housewife. What man could stand looking at that face every day? Who am I like this for? Weren't you the one who said you wanted me to give you a son? Ethan loosened his tie and sneered. If you don't want to be pregnant, then get rid of it. I've had nothing but bad luck since you got pregnant. He kicked over the coffee table and headed for the door. There are plenty of starlets in this town who would kill to have my baby. You really think I need you? Ethan's words were cruel, but they were true. In Hollywood, a female star hit with a scandal like this would be blacklisted, with no chance of a comeback. But he was a director, a producer. If he found the right opportunity, he could still make a comeback. Lily knew this too. She sat on the sofa, covering her face and weeping. The only thing she could do now was cling to Ethan, or she would truly have nothing left. But Ethan was utterly disgusted by her pregnant form. It wasn't long before a new rumor surfaced, this time with a recent acting school graduate. I held up my phone and showed Lily today's trending topic. Hashtag Ethan Vance's new flame-sizzling model. Aunt Lily, do you know this new auntie? Lily's face was blank. She just stroked her pregnant belly like a wooden doll. But I knew she had snapped. The fall from a beloved star to a reviled pariah. That kind of drop would break anyone. To push her completely over the edge. I feigned excitement and gossiped in front of her. I wonder if the new mommy is pregnant too? Am I going to have a new little brother? Lily remained silent, but I was certain she was about to make her move. She somehow got her hands on a drug that causes male infertility. Perhaps the dosage was too high, because it took effect the very same day. It took a full 3 days for Ethan to finally realize what had happened. He went straight to Lily. Did you do this? Lily laughed, a near maniacal sound. What if I did? You want to kill me? I'm carrying your only son in my belly. For a man as obsessed with having a male heir as he was, the son was undoubtedly her most powerful shield. Ethan was so furious his eyes looked like they were about to shoot fire. He raised his fist to strike her. I lunged forward and wrapped my arms tightly around his waist. Daddy, Aunt Lily has a baby in her belly. You could kill someone. Lily had completely lost control. Go on, hit me. Hit me if you dare. Neither of us is getting out of this in one piece. You psycho. You're completely insane. They argued for over an hour, finally ending with Ethan storming out and slamming the door. I complained to myself. Breaking up fights was exhausting, and I had to be careful not to harm the baby in Lily's belly. It seemed I needed to speed things up. So I became even more attentive to Lily, even more devoted. I would bring her warm water from time to time, chat with her, and listen to her problems. Lily became increasingly dependent on me, trusting me more and more, unsuspectingly consuming all the food I gave her, which was laced with hex worms. She thought I was genuinely looking out for her, little knowing I was only interested in her belly. The reason she was so attached to me was because the heart hex inside my body had an irresistible pull on the hex worms in her womb. A month later, I saw that the hex worms were well fed and ready. It was time to close the net. Just as dawn broke, Ethan and Lily were hunched over the toilet, vomiting violently. But after retching for a long time, what came out wasn't stomach acid, but blood-red maggots. What the hell are these things? Ethan grabbed a slipper and started swatting at the maggots. When he crushed one, it burst, splattering blood. The splattered blood hit Lily's face, and she shrieked, clutching her hair. Seeing my chance, I appeared holding a worm. Daddy, I think I'm sick too. I held the worm up for him to see. Ethan looked as if he'd seen a ghost. He knew this worm all too well. It was identical to the one I, as Jade, had shown him years ago. Back then, I had smiled and showed him my new pet hex worm. Ethan, if you ever betray me, I'll put this in your stomach. It's Jade. Ethan screamed, losing his mind. This kind of worm is what that old witch Jade raised. I touched the bump on my wrist. The heart hex began to stir again. Lily immediately clutched her stomach and cried out. Ah, my stomach. My baby. Ethan quickly snapped back to reality. He found a folk healer who understood hexes that very night. The old woman's face turned pale the moment she walked in the door. She stared at the maggots Lily had vomited up and trembled. The person who cast this hex is a master of the craft. I can't break it. You need to go to the bayou immediately and find the hex queen. If you're late, your whole family will rot into a pool of blood. After the old woman left, Ethan sat on the sofa, shaking uncontrollably. He had killed the Hex Queen's only daughter, Jade. How could he dare go to the bayou and seek help from the legendary Hex Queen? Lily saw through him and sneered. Scared now? You were pretty cocky when you killed Jade, weren't you? If we don't go, we're all going to die. We might as well take our chances in the bayou. Besides, we have Mimi. Do you really think the Hex Queen would stand by and watch her own granddaughter die? Ethan's face was grim. No, I'm not going. I'd rather die here and leave a whole corpse than die in the bayou. But he didn't have a choice. All I had to do was use a little hex magic, and I could make them vomit until they were half dead, living in a constant state of misery. Modern medicine couldn't find anything wrong. All their test results came back normal. Lily couldn't take it anymore. She started leaking the truth about Jade's murder online to force him to submit. I was right there, adding fuel to the fire. Daddy, let's go find Grandma. I'll tell her Mom's death was an accident. Grandma will definitely believe me. Finally, mentally and physically exhausted, Ethan gave in. Either way, he was dead. He might as well go to the bayou and take his chances. He got in a car and drove me and Lily to the bayou that night, bringing along a trove of gold and jewels as an offering for the Hex Queen. The car wound through the wilderness for a day and a night before finally stopping at the foot of the mountains. At the base was a stone tablet inscribed with the words, "Trespassers will not leave with their bodies intact." As soon as we got out of the car, a group of young locals in embroidered clothes stared at us. Their eyes glowed with a greenish, excited light, like hungry wolves spotting plump sheep. Lily hid behind Ethan, trembling. Ethan, their eyes are so scary. Don't be afraid. The people in the bayou are strange, but the Hex Queen has a rule. They can't actively harm people. Ethan's words were brave, but his legs were shaking. I smiled faintly and touched the heart hex on my wrist. Instantly, countless venomous snakes slithered out of the woods, and swarms of centipedes crawled from the cracks in the rocks. The locals immediately bowed to us in unison, their faces respectful. The leader, as if he had been expecting us, respectfully pointed the way to the Hex Queen's residence. Sweat beaded on Ethan's forehead. Did they mistake us for someone else? But time was short. The bayou would be even more dangerous after sunset, so the group had no choice but to steel themselves and follow the path the locals had indicated. Half an hour later, we reached the summit, where a wooden cabin stood. The door creaked open, and on a wicker chair inside sat a withered old woman. Ethan immediately dropped to his knees. "Great Hex Queen, please have mercy and save us," he pleaded, pushing me forward. "This is your granddaughter. Her mother was Jade. For their sake, I beg you to save us." The old woman opened her cloudy eyes and spoke coldly. "You've come to the wrong person. I'm not the Hex Queen. I'm her daughter, Faye." Ethan was stunned. You're the Hex Queen's daughter? Then who is Jade?" The old woman glanced at me, her tone flat. "Jade is the Hex Queen. She is also my biological mother. If you don't believe me, you can ask anyone in the bayou." Ethan's face was a mask of disbelief. "Impossible. Jade was so young, and you look at least 70. How could she be your mother?" The old woman smiled, her voice chilling. "There is a type of hex magic in these parts that allows one to possess the body of a blood relative, to live on and on through the bodies of one's family. As the Hex Queen, Jade has, of course, changed bodies countless times. I don't even know how long she has truly lived." Lily listened, her heart pounding with fear. "But Jade is dead." The old woman raised her eyelids, her twig-like fingers pointing at me. "Isn't she standing right there?" Ethan and Lily followed her gaze, their eyes widening as they stared at me. I grinned at the old woman. "Faye, my dear daughter. It's been a long time." Lily collapsed to the ground, her voice trembling. "Mimi, you aren't you Mimi?" I smiled faintly and casually grabbed a handful of dried insects from a nearby bamboo basket, popping them into my mouth and chewing. I haven't been back in years. I've really missed the local snacks. As for Mimi Vance, she's just the new body I've switched to. The last one, or was it the one before last? Her name was Bella Lynn, I think. What a coincidence, she had the same last name as you. Everything I said was true. To master the ultimate hexes, one must introduce the heart hex into one's own body, and feed it with one's own flesh and blood. While this method is excellent for developing one's power, it severely damages the body and shortens one's lifespan. Therefore, if a hex practitioner wishes to live a long life, They must find a new vessel before their own body gives out, and then use that new body to nurture the hexworms. And the body of a blood relative is always the best choice. Upon hearing this, Ethan retched, finally comprehending that the beautiful wife he had slept with for over a decade was actually an ancient monster who had swapped skins countless times. Lily, on the other hand, was frozen in shock. I frowned. His vomit had dirted my floor, ruining the mood. I let out a whistle, and two burly men immediately entered. Ethan scrambled to my feet, kowtowing and pleading. "Jade, please let me go. I'll do anything you want, anything." I clicked my tongue. "An impotent man. What use do I have for you?" No, I'm useful. I'm sure you can cure me. Please. Curing you would be a waste of my ingredients. Not worth it." I waved my hand dismissively. "Drag him to the worm pit. Use him as feed." The two men immediately grabbed Ethan by the collar and dragged him out like a dead dog. He begged and pleaded, but I just found him noisy. This fool had been nourished by my special feed for over a decade. His flesh and blood were now prime material for my hexworms. How could I possibly let him go? As for Lily, I smiled and crouched down, my hand stroking her swollen belly. She trembled in fear, shielding her stomach and shrinking back. I tilted her chin up and whispered, "What are you afraid of? The thing in your belly is my meticulously cultivated heart hex. You will live until you give birth. If you're still alive then, I'll let you go." She finally came to her senses, her face streaked with tears. "Mimi, I'll be good, I promise. Please just let me go." I frowned impatiently and had my people take her away, locking her in a room to be cared for. Whether she could withstand the gnawing of the worms and survive to give birth was another matter entirely. If she really did manage to deliver the new type of hexworm alive, it would be her good fortune. The cabin finally fell silent. I looked closely at the daughter I hadn't seen in over a decade. Her hair was completely white. She leaned on a cane, and she had aged beyond recognition. "Faye, are you sure you don't want a new body?" As a mother, I decided to show some concern. She shook her head, leaning on her cane and coughing. "I will let nature take its course and wait for death." Her answer was the same as it was decades ago. I smiled but said nothing. Many years ago, I had a daughter, Faye, with a man named Sterling. After he became successful just like Ethan, he took other women and treated me with utter contempt. But Faye, unlike Mimi, was completely different. She furiously condemned the man for his heartlessness and defended me with all her might. Once, I pretended to be terminally ill to test her. She became so desperate she abandoned her dignity, kneeling on the ground and begging the man to save me. She was the first person to stand by my side from beginning to end. So my heart softened. I fed the faithless man to my hexworms, but I didn't possess Faye. Instead, I brought her back to the bayou. I wanted to teach her hex magic, teach her how to possess others and achieve immortality, but she refused. "Mom, I can't do it. I can't harm my own blood relatives just to extend my own life." I smiled faintly. She and I were ultimately on different paths. Now she was frail and old, with only a few years left. And I, having changed bodies time and time again, remained young and beautiful. Soon, I would be alone again. My name was Mimi Vance. My dad, Ethan Vance, was a big-shot TV drama director. He was very generous with me, letting me spend my allowance however I wanted and never meddling in my life. My mom, Jade, was a weirdo. She had no parents, no friends, and spent all day in her room messing with strange bottles and jars. She always had a musty smell about her. I didn't like her because she was a total control freak. She wouldn't let me eat junk food and forced me to exercise, go to bed early, and wake up early every single day. It was my body, but she cared about it more than I did. The nanny said my mom just loved me too much, but to me, her love felt heavy, like being in prison. My classmates all said my mom wasn't normal. She never wore makeup or perfume, and my dad never took her to his work events. One time at a parent-teacher conference, she showed up in a plain black tunic, sticking out like a sore thumb among all the glamorous moms. I was teased about it for 2 weeks. Then Lily appeared in my dad's life. She was young, beautiful, and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. She always smelled nice. Every time she visited, she'd secretly slip me chocolate and take me to the amusement park until dark. When I called her Mommy Lily, she smiled sweeter than honey. Until one day, My parents had another fight. That day, my dad and Aunt Lily pulled me into the study. Mom. My dad narrowed his eyes. Sweetheart, take this bowl of medicine to your mom. Tell her it's good for her health. The medicine was dark and murky. It didn't look like anything good. Aunt Lily's eyes were red, as if she'd been bullied. Mimi, no matter what happens, I will always love you the most. You will be my only daughter. I realized what was happening, but I still chose to take the bowl of medicine to my mother. Compared to her, I preferred my indulgent dad and Aunt Lily. My hand trembled the whole way. My mother suddenly stared at me and asked, I've been by your side your whole life. Without me, will you regret this? I almost dropped the bowl, but I was too scared to speak. My mother laughed twice, snatched the bowl from my hands, and drank it all in one gulp. Mom. Blood immediately gushed from the corner of her mouth. I fainted from shock. I burned with a fever for 3 days and 3 nights. When I woke up, everything at home had changed. My mother's body had been cremated, and her ashes were gone. Lily had moved in. She suddenly became very busy. She no longer came to chat with me, no longer brought me snacks or told me jokes. My dad threatened me with a cold face. If you tell anyone how your mother died, you won't live to see another day. Aunt Lily didn't stop him. She just smiled and stroked her belly. I'm pregnant. Isn't it better to keep her around to help with our son? I suddenly felt a wave of regret. They had lied to me. Dad's promise to be better to me was a lie. Aunt Lily's promise that she wouldn't get pregnant and I would be Dad's only child was also a lie. It seemed the only person who had truly loved me was the one I had betrayed. The person who used to stay up all night taking care of me, telling me stories, and singing me to sleep was gone. But I didn't dare say anything. I was afraid of being called a stupid, ungrateful brat. Until one night, I had gone to bed early, but my soul floated out of my body and up to the ceiling. It seemed I had died. But then I woke up. I got out of bed and looked in the mirror. The person in the reflection lifted her bangs. It was a gesture my mom always made when looking in the mirror. My mom wasn't dead. She had entered my body. It turned out I was the one who had really died. But I wasn't sad. In fact, I was happy, relieved. My biological father and Lily tried to use the media to twist the truth, to slander my mother as a promiscuous, venomous woman. But my mother exposed their true faces, ruining their reputations and torpedoing their careers. In the end, to save their own lives, they decided to go to the bayou. It was supposedly my mother's hometown. My soul followed my mother the whole way. And for the first time, I saw the bayou. I saw my mother's other daughter, an old woman with a full head of white hair. It turned out my mother was the long-lived matriarch of a Hex clan. She had had many children. I was just one of them. My father was fed to the hexworms, and Lily was locked in a room to carry her baby to term. As for me, my mother never said a word. No one asked her about me. I thought my mother hated me, but after punishing them both, she went alone to the top of the mountain. The view was beautiful, with flowers everywhere. In the middle of it all was a small cluster of graves. She dug a hole and set up a tombstone. On it were the words, "Here lies my daughter Mimi Vance." Next to it, a smaller mound had a stone that read, "Here lies my daughter Bella Lynn." My mother didn't say anything. She just silently picked a few flowers and placed them on my grave. And I never cried, not once. After failing my grad school applications, civil service exams, and every job interview, a relative of my mom's offered me a job. "This is your great-aunt Susan's son's company," my mom told me, her voice pleading. "He's willing to give you a chance, so you have to work hard, you understand?" I knew she had swallowed her pride to beg for this job for me. My mom had been Great-Aunt Susan's free caregiver for a month, changing her bedpans, cleaning up after her, and even spending her own money on supplements for her. But I also knew that Great-Aunt Susan's sons were all successful businessmen, who had always looked down on us poor relatives. While my mom was tending to her, the old woman had lectured her. "So what if your Leo went to an Ivy League school? The streets are full of smart kids these days." At the end of the day, my sons barely graduated high school, but now they run their own companies, and all those educated kids have to work for them, don't they? My mom, while massaging her legs, forced a smile and agreed. "You're right, Susan. Our Leo is only good at studying. He's not as capable as your sons. But don't you worry, Helen. It's just a job. I'll ask Dawn if they have any openings. The moment she heard the word job, my mom's face lit up, and she served her even more diligently. Watching all this from the doorway, I felt a lump in my throat. I remembered when my mom was the proudest woman I knew. She was a top dancer in a professional troupe, beautiful and elegant, who never had to do a day of housework. After my dad passed away, she slowly let go of her pride, working herself to the bone to make sure I could get a good education. I swore then that I would make something of myself and give her a comfortable life. So on my first day, I dressed neatly and arrived an hour early, only to be stopped by the security guard, who assumed I was there for an interview. The guard shot me a dismissive look. "I don't care what you're here for. You need an appointment." I tried calling Great Aunt Susan's son, my cousin Don Reed, but his line was busy. I was left standing there under the blazing sun until a sharp, beautiful woman finally came out from the office. She looked me up and down, said a few words to the guard, and then led me inside. "My name is Jenna. I heard from Mr. Reed about your situation. The interview is just a formality. The real question is whether you can handle the job." I was about to ask what my position was when she pointed to the restrooms. "We recently laid off the cleaning staff. You can start by cleaning the toilets and the rest of the office." I was stunned, frozen in place. New hires always start with the small stuff. "It's a company tradition," Jenna said with a smile before walking away. I thought it was strange, but I did as I was told, grabbing the cleaning supplies and heading to the restroom. It was only then that I realized how filthy it was. Flies were buzzing everywhere, and disgusting yellow waste was splattered all over. It was hard to imagine when the last cleaning person had been let go. After I finally finished cleaning, Jenna called me to the office to buy coffee for everyone. "I'll have an iced Americano, extra shot, no sugar." "I want a midnight latte, extra cream, lots of ice." One by one, they all called out their orders. I scrambled to write them down on a piece of paper, then rode a shared bike to the coffee shop in the sweltering 97-degree heat. Sweat soaked the suit my mom had ironed for me that morning. By the time I got back, Jenna frowned, looking annoyed. "What took you so long? By the time you get back, the ice in this coffee is half melted. It's disgusting." She threw the coffee in the trash. The others who got their drinks said nothing, seemingly agreeing with her. I looked at the $75 charge that had just appeared on my phone. No one mentioned paying me back for the coffee, so I just kept my mouth shut. When I got home from work, my mom had prepared a feast of all my favorite dishes, but I had no appetite. "Son, how was your first day?" my mom asked, seeing my crestfallen face. "It's always tough at the beginning. Maybe your colleagues just aren't familiar with you yet. It'll get better once you get to know them." She didn't know how to comfort me, and I didn't want her to worry, so I just nodded. For the next few days, I was not only responsible for cleaning the office but also for fixing light bulbs and printers, serving tea, ordering takeout, and delivering documents. I did everything I was asked to do. A month later, I went to Jenna to ask about my salary. She lazily looked up at me. "What salary? Didn't Mr. Reed tell you this was just an internship? Interns don't get paid." In that time, I had spent hundreds of dollars on their takeout and coffee. I had been living on a shoestring budget, just waiting for my first paycheck to get some breathing room, only to be told I had been working for free. So when can I officially be hired? I swallowed my anger, thinking that once I was an official employee, I would get a salary. But Jenna just laughed. "Oh right, I forgot to tell you. Your performance during the internship was mediocre. You don't meet our requirements, so you don't need to come in tomorrow." What? I was dumbfounded. I asked what I had done wrong. She looked at me impatiently and waved her hand. "People said you're not a team player, that you just hide in the bathroom all day slacking off, and you're often absent." Not a team player? That was because there was no desk for me in the office, and my colleagues wouldn't talk to me. Hiding in the bathroom? That was because I had to clean the toilets every day. Absent? That was because they were constantly sending me out on errands to buy coffee and deliver files. I felt a surge of indignation. None of that is my fault, is it? And even if it's an internship, shouldn't there be a basic wage? "But you never signed an internship contract with our company." The contract? Great Aunt Susan had specifically told my mom that since we were family, there was no need for a contract. Her son would naturally give me a good position. So I never signed one. As I was leaving, I packed my things. I heard Jenna in the break room, reporting to Don Reed over the phone. Mr. Reed, just as you planned, that Leo Shin got angry and left on his own. Don Reed snorted on the other end. Kids these days have no patience. If it weren't for his mom acting as my mom's servant, I wouldn't have even given him this opportunity. I just wanted him to learn that in this world, money is king. So what if he was a great student? He's still just like his unlucky mom, scrubbing my toilets. Hearing this, I immediately understood. It was all a trap. Great Aunt Susan and Don Reed had pretended to arrange a job for me, only to abuse me at the company and force me out. But my skin was thicker than they expected, and I had endured it for a whole month. In the end, after I had done all their dirty work, they just found another excuse to get rid of me. Dejected, I threw my work badge on Jenna's desk. As I was about to leave, she called out behind me. Security will have to search you on your way out. Who knows if you have sticky fingers and took some company property. I clenched my fists and walked away without looking back. Since it wasn't yet closing time when I left the company, I was feeling down and went to a convenience store to buy a couple of beers, then walked to a park to clear my head. There was a lake in the park. The weather was hot, so people often ignored the danger and went swimming. A tall fence had been erected around the lake. As I stared at the vast expanse of water, I saw an old man climbing over the fence and sitting on top of it. I thought I might be drunk and seeing things, but I was drinking a low-alcohol pineapple beer. How could I be drunk? Hey, sir. I rushed over, wanting to pull him down, but he just gave me a lazy look and shifted slightly. Who are you? Sir, please come down. It's dangerous. My wife and kids don't care if I live or die. Why should a stranger like you stick your nose in my business? From those few short sentences, I understood his reason for wanting to end his life. Just as I was about to persuade him, my phone rang. It was my mom. Hello, Mom. I answered the phone, keeping a wary eye on the old man to make sure he didn't jump. I heard from your great Aunt Susan that you had a fight with your supervisor at work. What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you over and over to get along with your colleagues and leaders? You're making things so difficult for your cousin. He was kind enough to get you a job, and you throw a tantrum? Are you trying to disappoint me? Making things difficult for Don Reed? Give me a break. He was the one who was deliberately making things hard for me. I was about to tell her what Don had done, but then I heard my mom say, I wake up early and stay up late to take care of your great aunt, cleaning up after her. Even more than a paid caregiver. Why can't you understand what I'm doing for you? The words caught in my throat. Go apologize to your cousin tomorrow. The call ended. I squatted on the ground, feeling lost. The old man had stopped trying to jump and was watching me with a gossipy expression. Tough time finding a job, kid? I looked up blankly, then walked over to him and climbed over the fence as well. Sir, I might as well die with you. The old man stared at me for a few seconds, then burst out laughing. I don't want you to join me. He looked up at the sunset, then slowly climbed down from the fence and patted my shoulder. A young man wanting to die over a small setback like this? It's not worth it. I climbed down with him and retorted. You shouldn't give up either. There's an unbreakable bond between family. Maybe they love you more than you think. He looked at me, stunned for a moment, then shook his head, smiled, and walked away. After getting home, I decided to have a serious talk with my mom when she got back. I would keep looking for a job and wouldn't give up on the civil service exams. I needed to show her that I could make it on my own, without Don Reed's help. But the sky darkened, and she still hadn't returned. I found it strange and called her. The moment the call connected, my heart sank. Great Aunt Susan told me my mom had been stabbed at the hospital. By the time I arrived, my mom was being wheeled out of the operating room. She had lost too much blood, and they couldn't save her. I collapsed to my knees. In an instant, I had lost the person who loved me most in this world. I cried like a child, clinging to her side. Mom, open your eyes and look at me. I'm sorry, Mom, please. But her pale lips and closed eyes told me that she would never again call me her rascal. I rushed to the police station, where the officer told me that the person who killed my mom was a man in the same hospital room as Great Aunt Susan. The man had a history of anxiety and depression. He had raised his son all by himself, only for his ungrateful son and daughter-in-law to bully him, stress him into sickness, and then never visit him in the hospital again. When Great Aunt Susan found out, she started taunting him. They say when children are ungrateful, it's usually the parents' fault. You sit there all day angry that your kids don't visit, but maybe you should think about whether you were a good enough parent. That's why you're alone in your old age. Look at my 3 sons. They're all successful, and they all fight to take care of me. The old man was already angry, but hearing this, he became enraged and grabbed a fruit knife from the table to confront her. My mom saw what was happening and tried to de-escalate, telling Great Aunt Susan to stop, that they were in the same room and shouldn't get so worked up. But Great Aunt Susan only got more fired up. Who are you to lecture me? If you weren't cleaning up my messes, I wouldn't even bother with you. You jinx, you widow. And don't even get me started on your worthless son. Great Aunt Susan berated my mom. He was probably a dishonest, indecent man when he was young. That's why his kids are so ungrateful. What did I say that was wrong? The old man's eyes were bloodshot. He let out a yell and lunged at Great Aunt Susan with the knife. In the heat of the moment, my mom took the blow, and it hit a vital spot. By the time security and medical staff arrived, she had already passed out. Listening to this, my palms grew slick with sweat. I wanted to confront the old man, but I heard he had suffered a hypertensive crisis at the time, and also died after being rushed to the ICU. I had no choice but to go home and handle my mom's affairs. Because I had no job and no savings, I didn't even have the money to buy a burial plot for her. I went to Great Aunt Susan for help, but she looked at me with disgust. Get lost. You're nothing but bad luck. Your mom was bad luck and you're bad luck too. I couldn't understand. My mom died for her. How could she say such heartless things? Leo, when a person is dead, they're just ashes. Why buy a burial plot? Isn't that a waste of money? Don Reed added with a sneer. Our family has helped you enough. Your mom almost got my mom killed with her bad luck. We should be asking you for money. What do you mean? I said angrily. Everyone in the family knows. Your mom jinxed your dad to death. If your dad hadn't insisted on marrying her, would he have been killed in that construction accident? Don Reed continued to provoke me. Your mom was a curse. It's better that she's dead. Pow. I threw a punch, leaving Don Reed with a bruised and swollen face. Then, I was hauled off to the police station for the second time. The young officer sighed at me. You assaulted him. The compensation money from the old man's family will probably have to go to Don Reed now. I was shocked. What compensation money? Your great aunt's family demanded compensation, and it should be arriving in a few days. But Great Aunt Susan and Don Reed had never mentioned any compensation money. I realized they had probably pocketed it. What kind of soulless monsters were they? My mom had taken such good care of her, and in the end, they even stole the money meant for her death. And now, Don Reed had tricked me into assaulting him, and had me locked up in a holding cell. In that moment, I felt like I had hit the darkest, lowest point of my life. After I was released, Don Reed called me. You hit me. You have to pay $10,000 for medical bills and emotional distress. I laughed coldly. You can come collect it in hell. I sat on the fence by the park lake where I'd been before, crying like a baby. If it weren't for my incompetence, my mom wouldn't have had to grovel to Great Aunt Susan, suffer so much humiliation, and she wouldn't have been killed. Now she was gone, and I had no will to live. I closed my eyes, ready to jump, when a familiar voice came from behind me. Fancy seeing you here, kid. Your turn to die this time. I looked at the old man I had stopped from committing suicide the other day, stunned. What's wrong? What's got you so down? My mom's dead, I lost my job, and my relatives scammed me out of a lot of money, I said in a low voice, completely defeated. Money can be earned back. You can find another job. Your family is gone, but would they want you to die with them? Don't break your mother's heart. After the old man left, I wiped my tears. My phone suddenly buzzed. Congratulations, you have been hired by the Sterling Corporation. Please report to the Human Resources Department on the second floor tomorrow with your relevant documents. I couldn't remember when I had submitted that resume. I only knew that Sterling Corporation was a Fortune 500 company, a massive enterprise founded by Mr. Sterling, the richest man in the city. I looked at the calm surface of the lake and finally climbed down. I couldn't let those people get away with it, and I wasn't ready to die just yet. The next day, I went to the Sterling Corporation. A big company was a big company, a world apart from Don Reed's small firm. The HR staff were also very friendly. After asking a few simple questions, they took me to the president's office. Wait, the position I applied for was just a staffer in the planning department, right? I asked, surprised. The young woman from HR checked her phone and then looked at me. That's right. The president specifically asked for you. While I was still puzzled, the old man who had talked me down in the park yesterday appeared before me. The HR woman immediately greeted him. Good morning, Mr. President. I, on the other hand, stammered. Sir, you're the president? It turned out that the old man who had wanted to kill himself was none other than Mr. Sterling, the president of Sterling Corporation. He dumped almost all of his work on me. While I was working every day, he'd be sitting with his legs crossed, playing with his birds. Kid, come with me to the flower market this afternoon, he suddenly said. I stared at the room full of chirping parrots and mynah birds, and fell into a deep thought. Not to buy birds, to buy flowers, Mr. Sterling said, sensing my confusion. I'm going to the cemetery to visit someone. Getting along with the old man was actually very simple. You just had to listen when he talked, and if he occasionally forgot what he was saying, you'd remind him. It's too hot. I'm old and don't like to move around. Go buy me a few bouquets of sunflowers. I nodded and got out of the car, but as soon as I entered the flower market, I ran into Don Reed and Jenna, arm in arm, looking at plants. If I remembered correctly, Don Reed was already married and had 3 sons. Don, I think this one looks good. It would look great in the office, Jenna said in a whiny voice, her arm hooked around Don's, constantly brushing her soft parts against him. Don Reed was clearly enjoying it and immediately decided to buy the $300 plant. But what if your wife finds out I made you spend so much money? Will she be mad at me? Jenna said, playing the innocent card again. Who gives a damn about her? Don Reed spat. She spends my money all day playing the part of a rich lady. What more could she want? Listening to their back and forth, I felt a deep sense of irony. I had met Don Reed's wife. She was a beautiful, gentle woman. After they got married, Great Aunt Susan forced her to quit her job to have children at home. She was scolded for spending even a single extra penny, but he had forgotten that it was her dowry that had supported his career in the beginning. This mother-son duo had mastered the art of burning bridges. I resisted the urge to punch him and focused on buying the sunflowers Mr. Sterling wanted. But that persistent ghost, Don Reed, spotted me and openly mocked me. Isn't that so and so? You still owe me 10 grand, and you have the spare cash to buy flowers? Jenna, seeing it was me, also gave a look of disdain. Did you become a gigolo? Rich older women don't like sunflowers, you know. People around us started looking over, pointing and whispering. But I just said calmly, sunflowers. Wrap up 10 of your best bouquets for me. Money is no object. Money is no object? When the hell are you going to pay back the money you owe me? Don Reed started to shove me, but his hand was stopped in mid-air. Sir, please show some respect. The man who stopped him was one of Mr. Sterling's bodyguards, a burly man with a cold expression. I'm talking to my nephew. What's it to you? Who are you to this kid? Don Reed's temper flared. Please do not interfere with Mr. Shun's work. Mr. Shun? Assistant to the president. Don Reed laughed scornfully. Some assistant at a crappy little company has the nerve to act tough here? I'm buying all the sunflowers here today. The bodyguard started to argue, but I stopped him. How much would it cost to buy all the sunflowers in this huge market? The flower shop owner, seeing a big customer, rushed over obsequiously. We have 300 bouquets of sunflowers in our shop. At $5 a bouquet, I'll give you a discount and make it $1,000. Another flower shop owner chimed in. Sir, I have even more sunflowers, just got 500 bouquets in. I'll sell them to you for $4 a bouquet, $2,000 in total. One after another, flower shop owners quoted their prices. A rough estimate came to at least $10,000. At this point, Don Reed's face turned green. He was stuck. Jenna, beside him, shouted in a loud, grating voice, a far cry from her earlier affected demeanor. 10,000 it is. Didn't you owe our Don 10,000 for medical bills last time? Pay it back now. I laughed. I couldn't believe how thick-skinned these two were. making a show of their wealth and expecting someone else to foot the bill. I'll buy all these sunflowers. Mr. Sterling had appeared at some point, and I didn't know how long he had been watching the spectacle. My apologies, everyone. My granddaughter loves sunflowers, so I'll be taking all of them today. What's it to you, you old geezer? We saw these sunflowers first. We're buying them. Jenna shouted, oblivious to the danger. Smack! Don Reed slapped Jenna across the face. You stupid bitch. How dare you disrespect Mr. Sterling? It turned out that Don Reed's company had been trying to partner with Sterling Corporation for a while, but Mr. Sterling hadn't even glanced at his company. Jenna, realizing her mistake, covered her face and hid behind Don Reed. So about these sunflowers, Mr. Sterling asked. They're all yours. People like us don't understand these flowers. It would be a waste to buy them. I was hoping to treat you to dinner to discuss that new project in the city. I wonder when you might be free, Mr. Sterling. Watching Don Reed's rapid change of face, I smirked. He is my assistant. From now on, he will represent me in all matters concerning your company. You can talk to him, Mr. Sterling said, pulling me in front of him. Don Reed looked at me, a mixture of surprise and embarrassment on his face. Mr. Reed. I extended my hand to him. We already have each other's numbers, no need to exchange contact information. His face turned shades of red and white. Finally, he gritted his teeth and shook my hand, then scurried away with Jenna in tow. Watching his retreating back, my expression hardened. Don Reed, your good days are numbered. At the cemetery, Mr. Sterling was quiet the whole way. He didn't ask what had happened at the flower market. He just placed the most beautiful sunflowers in front of the grave of his beloved granddaughter. Claire, Grandpa's here to see you. He bent down, plucked the weeds around her grave, and touched the headstone as if it were a precious treasure. Seeing his sorrow, I suddenly thought of my mother. The pain of losing a loved one is worse than 1,000 cuts. Yet I couldn't even afford a burial plot for her. Mr. Sterling seemed to sense my mood and suddenly spoke. This is my granddaughter. She was born when Sterling Corporation was just starting out. If she were still alive, she'd be about your age. He reminisced, chatting with me. Back then, Sterling Corporation was just a small company with very little cash flow. Almost no one was willing to invest in us. When we finally made some money and were about to invest in a project, my granddaughter got sick. She was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect and needed a $200,000 surgery, but the success rate was only 10%. I was torn between the project and saving my granddaughter. I really didn't know what to do. The choice between family and fortune is always a difficult one. It seems you regret it no matter what you choose. Mr. Sterling couldn't bear to let the hard work of his partners go to waste, so he invested the money in the project. Fortunately, the project was a huge success, and Sterling Corporation took off. But that same year, his granddaughter, Claire, died from a relapse of her heart condition, surrounded by cold medical equipment. From then on, Mr. Sterling's wife and children resented him, saying he only cared about money and not his own family. They cut off all contact with him, and he became a complete loner. Now, he was incredibly successful, but he could never save his granddaughter. But you're not a heartless person, Mr. Sterling. You've sponsored so many disabled children, donated to hospitals and orphanages, and saved countless lives. I had looked up Mr. Sterling's background. He was indeed a philanthropist. He smiled bitterly. I'm just doing my best to make amends. You may regret it now, but at the time, you were carrying the weight of not just your family, but the entire Sterling Corporation. No matter what decision you made, there would have been gains and losses. I'm not very good at comforting people, but maybe your family has already forgiven you. After returning from the cemetery, my phone blew up with calls from Don Reed. I deliberately ignored them and focused on my work. Suddenly, a call came from an unknown number. Hello. Leoshan. What the hell is wrong with you, you little brat? In business, shouldn't relatives help each other out? How could you do this to your cousin? It was great, Aunt Susan. It was your cousin who gave you a job opportunity in the first place. How can you repay his kindness with ingratitude? Ingratitude? Who was the ungrateful one here? My mom had taken such good care of her, even taking a knife for her, but she had conspired with Don Reed to set a trap for me and push me to a dead end. Keep it in the family. That project would have been perfect for your other uncle. Isn't that what family is for? Helping each other out. Helping each other out? I said casually. Then when are you going to pay me back my mom's compensation money? What compensation money? Great Aunt Susan said, her voice betraying her guilt. You have 3 days to give me that money, or you can expect a letter from my lawyer. I hung up. Great Aunt Susan's angry shouts turned into a dial tone. The proposal Don Reed's construction company had submitted was full of holes, and their management was a mess. Even if I wasn't the assistant, it wouldn't have been worthy of Mr. Sterling's consideration. But Don Reed thought he could use me to get in with Sterling Corporation. That afternoon, a sum of money appeared in my account. Your mother's compensation, a full $200,000. A bitter taste filled my mouth. I used the money to buy a burial plot for my mom and arrange for her ashes to be interred. But after that, Don Reed's calls became even more frequent. He even came to the office to find me. You bastard. I gave you back the money, and this is how you treat me, he shouted in my office. I gave him a cold look. Your company is not a good fit. We look forward to future opportunities. You're getting back at me, aren't you? Security escorted him out. His eyes were bloodshot, and he swore he would make me pay. But before he could make me pay, I went to Don Reed's wife. In the past few days, I had someone tail Don Reed and Jenna, taking pictures of them together. I also had them get a record of Don Reed's money transfers to Jenna from his phone, and encouraged his wife to divorce him. At first, she was hesitant. After all, she and Don Reed had 3 children together. But when I showed her her father's medical records, she completely broke down. It turned out that during the last period of her father's cancer, Don Reed had not paid his medical bills. He had also used the excuse of taking care of the children to prevent her from visiting him. It wasn't until the old man was found dead at home that he was hastily cremated. Afterward, he lied and told her that her father had died in the hospital. She cried for a long time. I patted her shoulder comfortingly. Such a beautiful, gentle woman shouldn't be wasted on a scumbag like that. So after helping her gather all of Don Reed's cheating evidence, they successfully divorced. Don Reed was forced to leave with nothing. All of his assets went to her, and she was granted custody of their 3 children. After the divorce, Don Reed found out I had set him up. He brought Great Aunt Susan to my door. Great Aunt Susan, who had been bedridden, was so angry that I had destroyed her son's family that she was now able to walk again. She grabbed my hand, cursing me for being heartless and predicting I would die a terrible death. You'll be the first to die a terrible death, I said coldly. The next second, Great Aunt Susan collapsed to the ground and passed out. When Don Reed saw his mother faint, his first instinct wasn't to call an ambulance, but to call the police. As a result, Great Aunt Susan missed the window for emergency treatment. By the time she was taken to the hospital, her heart had already stopped. Don Reed was stunned for a moment. He had intended for his mother to stage a fall to frame me, but he never thought it would turn out to be real. So, he went all in and accused me of murder. When the police came to take me away, I pointed to the security camera in the room. I didn't push her. She fell on her own. After a police investigation, it was confirmed that the camera angle was perfect, capturing the entire process of Great Aunt Susan pushing me. The recording also caught Don Reed's triumphant voice. You knocked my mom down. You're going to jail. I'm going to make you pay until you're broke. He was so excited that he completely ignored Great Aunt Susan struggling on the floor, grabbing at his pant leg. He waited until she stopped moving before slowly calling for help. When he realized she was really gone, he knew he had gone too far. He was stunned, but now he could only try to distance himself from the situation. It was all the old lady's idea. I couldn't stop her. I never thought she would try to stage a fall. It's unbelievable. I couldn't help but sneer. Great Aunt Susan had doted on this son her whole life, only to die such a bleak death and be betrayed by him in the end. Later, Don Reed was still pestering me for money. It's all because of you that I lost everything. I don't have a penny to my name. She was your great aunt, after all. You're the assistant to the president of Sterling Corporation now. It shouldn't be hard for you to buy her a burial plot, right? It's not hard at all, I said flatly. But when a person is dead, they're just ashes. Why buy a burial plot? Isn't that a waste of money? Besides, spending money on people like you makes me sick. Before, when I had begged him for money to handle my mom's funeral, he had called her bad luck. Now he couldn't blame me for turning my back on him. You ungrateful piece of shit. If you push me too far, I don't mind taking you down with me. I ignored his ranting on the phone and focused on my work. Under Mr. Sterling's guidance, I had learned a lot, and he was happy to step back and let me take the reins. I lived up to his trust, handling everything with competence. One day, I had to go to a site for an inspection with a representative from another real estate company. To my surprise, the representative was a young woman. She wore a hard hat and stood under the scorching sun without flinching. "Hello, I'm Sophie from the Sioux Corporation." Sophie introduced herself confidently. "This land will be developed into a wellness city, and all facilities will be completed by the end of the year. If Sterling Corporation is willing to partner with us, we're willing to offer a certain discount." I thought it was a good idea and asked if she wanted to have a meal together. She was surprised for a moment, then agreed. After taking off her hard hat and other gear, she looked even more petite. Her delicate features, graceful figure, and the small dimples that appeared when she smiled were very attractive. I was so captivated that I didn't notice a man dressed as a construction worker silently approaching us. "Watch out!" Sophie shouted. I snapped back to reality and noticed the disguised Don Reed. He was holding a bottle of what I assumed was acid and lunging at me. Sophie, quick on her feet, opened an umbrella to shield us. A few drops splattered onto my arm, burning through my suit and scalding my skin. Seeing that the acid hadn't killed me, Don Reed pulled out a dagger and lunged at me. I reacted by grabbing a rock and throwing it at his head, then flipping him over my shoulder. Security guards noticed the commotion and rushed over to restrain him. "Leoshan, you'll die a dog's death. I'm going to kill you," he screamed, his bruised eyes fixed on me. After the police took him away, the site finally quieted down. Sophie was clearly shaken and stood there in a daze for a long time. I felt guilty and escorted her to her car. Later, I found out that Don Reed's company had gone bankrupt due to massive losses and Jenna's malicious transfer of assets. When Jenna saw that he was broke, she naturally left him, taking the money with her. After his bankruptcy, his so-called buddies all avoided him like the plague. So he blamed everything on me and swore to kill me. Now that he was in jail for attempted murder, all he could do was curse my name from his cell. When Mr. Sterling heard about it, he asked if I was injured. I held up the arm that had been burned by the acid and smiled. "It's nothing serious." He looked at me and tapped my head, saying I was good at my job but didn't know how to protect myself. Afterward, I talked to a few people who used to work at Don Reed's company and found out where Jenna had gone. She had taken the money and gone abroad, only to be scammed out of everything and returned to the country in disgrace. She started applying for jobs again and hooked up with another company's boss, becoming his secretary and mistress. However, this boss was notoriously henpecked. His wife was a fiery woman who hated homewreckers with a passion. I wanted to find a way to contact her and tell her about Jenna, but I never had the chance. And if I did it myself, I would undoubtedly incur the wrath of that boss. Just when I was wondering how to deal with Jenna, Don Reed's ex-wife, Sharon, contacted me. She said she was very grateful to me for helping her escape her miserable life. She and her 3 children were doing well, and she had returned to the workforce. "The boss's wife at this company is great. We've become like best friends," she said happily. Inadvertently, she called out, "Brenda, what are you doing here? I was just telling my friend about you." Brenda? Wasn't that the name of the feisty wife of the boss Jenna had just hooked up with? I used this opportunity to tell her about Don Reed's current situation. Sharon sneered. "He brought it all on himself. It serves him right for being scammed out of his money by a mistress." On the other end of the line, Brenda immediately got excited when she heard the word mistress and asked for her name. Sharon said indignantly, "Her name is Jenna. You probably haven't heard of her, Brenda." I silently hung up the phone. Now that Brenda had heard the name Jenna and knew that her husband also had someone named Jenna around him, she would definitely become suspicious and investigate. I wouldn't have to lift a finger. Within a month, a scandal erupted in the business world. A boss was caught cheating on his wife with his young secretary. The wife caught them in the act, and photos of them running out of the hotel naked, some censored and some not, went viral. I clicked on one of the photos. It was indeed Jenna. Seeing her frantic escape, I suddenly remembered my first day at work and the disdainful look she had given me when she sent me to buy coffee. Now everyone was looking at her with the same disdain, and the insults were flying. All the people who had bullied me had paid the price. After all that, I resigned and went to take the civil service exams. Mr. Sterling had wanted me to be his successor at Sterling Corporation, but I refused. 3 years later, I received a notice that Mr. Sterling was critically ill. It turned out he had listed me as his family, so the hospital called me. I was about to rush over to see him when I remembered something. I found his old files and looked up the phone numbers of his wife and children. But when I called them, they hung up as soon as they heard it was about Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling might not have much time left. His dying wish is to see you all. Can you please see him one last time? He's been trapped in the past for too long. I took a deep breath, my eyes stinging. The first time I met him, he was about to jump off a bridge. He said his family didn't care about him anymore, and there was no point in living. After that, he would buy so many sunflowers on the anniversary of his granddaughter's death, and would donate to disabled children without a second thought. He was helpless at the time. Sterling Corporation had hundreds of mouths to feed. The call was disconnected. My hand was still trembling. When I arrived at the hospital, Mr. Sterling was staring peacefully at the ceiling. "Sir." He heard my voice and said blankly, "It's you, kid." Perhaps in that moment, we were truly like family. I cried as I walked to his side, feeling the same grief I had felt when my mother was dying. He gently patted my head and then quietly closed his eyes. I don't know how long it was before he was officially pronounced dead. Maybe life is never perfect, but we're lucky if we meet someone who shows us warmth along the way.